You're listening to the IWN podcast. I'm Harley Handy. All views in this podcast are my own. In this podcast, I'm going to talk about a number of different things. One of the things I'm going to talk about is vaccines, the COVID vaccines. Well, currently there's about 1,000 people in London, Ontario, including myself, that have been suspended from school due to not being vaccinated for the COVID-19 um, vaccine. We're not allowed to go to school because we're refusing to be vaccinated. So basically, what they're saying is we're being denied an education because we won't accept the vaccines. Another thing I'd like to talk about is the schools denying education to people who are still in diapers because they're unpotty trained or because they have incontinence issues. I know the media likes to make it like it's a new thing, it's an old thing. When I was going to school, public school, I was on an IEP and in a special education class. There were teachers there that helped with toileting issues and educational issues. And there was children in my class who were in diapers and had toileting issues. So to say the problem or issue is a new thing is wrong. I can't speak for all parents because I don't have children, but I can say that the school is denying washroom breaks, which is causing people to have incontinence issues later on in life. And I know that the denying of washroom breaks is still going on because there's an article right here in February 19 of 23 that says Mom slams school toilet policy after pupils end up suffering embarrassing accidents because they're denying washroom breaks. So they're making kids and adults hold their bladder and bowel all day, which causes incontinence issues later on in life. And I know a lot of people say, well, nobody should be wearing diapers to school. Well, it doesn't matter if you're in a diaper or not. If you're having an accident, having a diaper on is better than having no diaper on. And the nurses are complaining about having to change diapers. Well, why are you a nurse if you don't want to do your job? Part of the job is changing diapers. Yeah, and there's an article and it says, and it's out of the Straits Times, and it says the trend of 11-year-olds wearing diapers to school worries teachers in Switzerland. Well, it's not a new thing that there's kids going to school in diapers. That's been going on for a long time, even when I was in public school. And it was never a teacher that changed his diapers, it was a school nurse. Like, here's an article from December the 10th, 2019. It says special education teacher accused of making students sit in soiled pants for 2 hours to prove a point. And that's not even, no diapers, nothing, just underwear. And she's making the person sit in their filth for 2 hours. Like here's an article from 2008. And it's seniors left in dirty diapers complaint. The family of a woman staying at a retirement home run by troubled company Retirement Concepts has been made formal complaints that their mother has been left for long periods of time in dirty diapers. Like, even our seniors, they're leaving in filth. And a lot of parents will say, oh, it's just lazy parenting. In terms of the kids going to school in diapers. I don't think that. I think it's a lot of it has to do with medications and the food that we're eating and the water, the fluoridated water, and all the vaccines and big pharma. And also the teachers denying washroom breaks. And that's what's causing the incontinence issues. I have incontinence issues myself, and I'm 30. And I don't think that anybody that has incontinence issues or is untoilet trained should be denied an education just because they wear diapers. The conservatives would like to blame parents for lazy parenting, and they like to cite this book called Toilet Training in Less Than a Day that was published in 1974, and it was all about habit training. It was like a boot camp book. And they like to cite this book as a way of, if you read this book and you do boot camp with your kid, then they'll be toilet trained. And you'll even hear them say that, they should sit in their filth and that will somehow make them learn to go to the washroom. That's not the case. They like to use these old narratives that don't work. That's the conservative way. It's usually to go back to the past, to try to retry things that didn't work in the past. But anyway, they say here, right here, legally schools aren't allowed to turn away children who haven't yet mastered toilet training or are still in nappies. They have a duty to take care of your child, and in an ideal world, staff and parents should work together to support the children who need help getting reliably clean and dry. I agree. There's a school nurse there for a reason. They should be able to address everything. And if you're unwilling as a nurse or a doctor to change diapers, then maybe you shouldn't be in that job. And in terms of disability accessibility, there is none in Canada. It's really bad. They have no accessibility for people with disabilities to get around. Up north, my grandmother, who was sick, came to live with us for a period of time, about 10 years or so, and in the north, and it was really bad. They just left her in her room in diapers, and they would come every morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, but there really wasn't no accessibility for her to get out and about in the community, and that's the thing that needs to change in Canada in terms of our health care. We can't just keep putting people in hospitals and in their houses, in their room, and letting them lay in bed all day. That's not health care. That's really bad. But the Conservatives refuse to invest in health care and into hospitals. They invest more into police than they do hospitals and health care. It's really bad in terms of overdoses. I can't even believe, after I came back from Northern Ontario, I came to Southern Ontario, and all I could see was people overdosing all over, people with addictions all over. The downtown core, a lot of these businesses like to blame the homeless for their failures, for the failures of their business, but it's really the fault of these corporations like Far High, who bought up all the buildings here in London, and they bought up all the buildings and left them empty and jacked the lease so high that nobody can afford it. Like nobody wants to open a business and make no money because the lease is too high. And we used to have two hospitals, South Street Hospital and the mental institution, and they closed both of them and made all those people go and live on the streets with the people that are just homeless, that don't have an addiction or don't have a mental health problem or an illness. And so then we have all these people that have all these illnesses and mental health problems and all that downtown. Some of them have incontinence issues, but are forced to poop on sidewalks because they're not getting any of the diapers, because they're being rationed by all these organizations that are down there trying to make money off of everybody that's poor and homeless. And they're down there filming and making money off the backs of the homeless people. And it's just sickening to see what's going on down there, as far as these organizations trying to profit off of people's hardships. And all the police, they like to go after the low-end criminals. They don't like to go after the high-end criminals, which is Big Pharma that's created the opioid crisis. These big CEOs of corporations and our city councilors that are all crooked. They don't want to go after those people, or the mayor, the high-end criminals. They don't want to go after. They're too busy focused on the low-end criminals. And their downtown revitalization plan has been tried over and over and over again. It was done in the 80s, the revitalization plan of the downtown cores, and it was to sweep out the homeless and the poor from downtown, so it could be downtown for the rich and wealthy. And this plan that they've done to wipe out the poor has been tried over and over and over again and failed. So if they think moving all the homeless and poor out of the downtown cores and putting fences around churches and putting fences up around buildings so the homeless won't sleep there, and putting spikes and all this stuff so nobody could sleep, if they think that's going to work, it's not going to. It failed multiple times a long time ago. And these old narratives and old ways of doing things always end up failing. The people in Toronto remember the Mike Harris days, of the conservative Mike Harris days, when he cut health care, and Doug Ford is doing the same. He's cut autism funding, disability funding, OW funding. He's he's all about himself and his rich buddies. You know, if you're homeless and you don't go to the hospital, you don't get money on your drug card to buy any kind of medicines or pads or diapers or whatever, because they won't give you any money for that kind of stuff unless you're diagnosed. So you have to go through the testing at the hospital to get any kind of help for that and get a diagnosis first before they'll give you any help. And that goes for disability too. If you want disability, you have to go through the testing at the hospital. A lot of people won't do that because of the side effects of all the testing. And you'll hear Pierre Polivet out there trying to say, you know, we need rehab and addiction services more than we should have, you know, safe injection sites and whatnot. You know, I think that the rehab facilities is an old way. It's been tried before. It's not new. My dad died in a rehab center in Toronto, and I think that the rehab centers lack oversight, just like our healthcare, big time. The real solution would be to legalize all drugs and improve healthcare. And another good thing to get people off the streets and into some jobs and better housing would be basic income and build more housing. For sure, that would be a great thing to do to get people off of our streets and into housing and a proper job and everything else. Right now, you don't get enough on OW or ODSP really to survive. A single person on OW can barely afford a one-bedroom apartment. So how are they going to find a job and do all that? You know, like it really should be basic income for all. That way everybody gets the same, and you know, people can survive. Right now, they're allowed the government has allowed these grocery stores to charge whatever they want, and the federal and provincial government are both responsible for that, and they're trying not to take any responsibility for that at all. But it is their fault. They try to cite transportation costs, but that is a complete and total lie. The transport trucks run from Windsor all the way to Vancouver, BC, and they run through the Trans-Canada Highway. So all the prices should be equally the same, but they're not. And they always like to try to cite the transportation costs, and it's a lie. It's an old narrative. That narrative has been used multiple times a long time ago, and it's time to address the real problem of the food costs and the government to take responsibility instead of trying to blame shift on every topic. They try to blame shift between parties, and really in reality a lot of the problems in our country are because both the conservatives and liberals refuse to take responsibility for the problems that they created over many years. Like, I'm 30, I can't afford to drive a car because the car insurance is so much money and gas prices are so high. But, you know, mainly the car insurance, they've allowed these car insurance places to charge so much money that people that are young like me can't afford it. I've never tried for a license because I know I can't afford the costs that come along with having a vehicle. They've also allowed these cell phone companies to take advantage of the poor and the middle class and get them hooked into plans where they're signed up for 5 years or so or more, and they're on plans and they pay a lot of money each month, and these telephone companies are making a lot of money off of people, and the government just lets them do whatever they want, just like the grocery stores. You know, we're a country of vast resources, but we're giving it all away to other countries. In terms of, you know, our country has a lot of resources, but it's all being extracted and shipped overseas, and later on in the future, the future generations that are young are going to be questioning, why did you do that? Because now we're going to have to buy it all back, and we don't have any. You see, like, you know, we should be transitioning into hemp so we could stop cutting our trees to make diapers and pull-ups and you know, like, and toilet paper and all that kind of stuff. You know, we could get these companies like Depend and Tenna and Huggies and Pampers and all those companies to change into the to hemp. Like take the material and make the products out of hemp instead of cotton and tree pulp and all that kind of stuff. We should be transitioning to an era of green technology, not going backwards into fossil fuels and coal mining days and stuff like that the conservatives are trying to pull us back into that narrative of the old way of we should beat your kids and wife and be a drill sergeant. Like they're trying to bring us back in time. I don't want to go back in time. I want to go forward. And the future generations are saying the same thing. And these emergency crews are crooked too, because you got fire departments committing arsons for a paycheck. They're committing arsons to respond to scenes, and then they're getting a paycheck for it. And it's ridiculous. There's no oversight of the emergency crews either. And we need a new party in Canada, or no leaders at all, because this is ridiculous. Like, these old parties, they're so crooked, it's unbelievable. And we got townships that are complete corrupt, mayors naming airports after themselves and their family, family dynasties and racist mayors, and it's just, and even politicians that are total drug addicts themselves, and they don't want to admit it, and then they end up getting caught for it later. It's just the whole system is so crooked anymore, and it's time to create something new. We need to stop building walls and stop, having even Parliament Hill and Queen's Park where politicians just sit in a building all day and do nothing, and keep this colonial reign going. We need to end that colonial reign and actually get the politicians to come out of those buildings where they're just sitting there all day doing nothing on the taxpayers' dollar. I also like to talk a little bit about the London Food Bank. I personally remember the London Food Bank when it was behind Kellogg's. The food bank is run by crooked people. It's run by a couple and their names are Glenn Pearson and Jane Roy. Glenn, a retired professional firefighter, a former member of Parliament, has served the London Food Bank as executive director since 1987. Glenn also served as the chairperson of Ontario Association of Food Banks for a 2-year term. He and Jane were married in 1999. Since 1988, Jane has been involved with the London Food Bank, and she has been remarkably successful at developing the organization's profile and community. Like Glenn, Jane served a 2-year term as a chairperson of the Ontario Association of Food Banks. When you go to the London Food Bank, they give you outdated food. They treat you like you're low. You're a low person, lower than them. They're disrespectful, and they don't like to help you. The food bank was placed on the outskirts of town on purpose so people wouldn't go there. You're lucky if out of $100, $5 makes it to the poor, and they always say it's because of the overhead costs and is the reason why. The food banks and charities are tax havens for the rich. If all the donations and funding went to where it was supposed to go, there would be no poor. They're not non-profits, they're liars. And they have no morals. Ontario also needs rent control really badly. There's no reason the rent should be this high at all. In 2011, in Windsor, Ontario, I remember paying $500 a month for a whole house. And currently, the housing market, to buy a brand new house, the costs for that are way too high. A brand new house built out of OSB chipboard is not worth $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000. And it's just like the cars and the vehicles, the quality just isn't there. It's really bad. Even medical equipment like PPE is just that it's terrible, the quality of things anymore. I personally emailed some of the companies myself, one of them being Tenna, because their diapers don't have leg gathers on them or elastic waistbands. So a lot of the products that you buy anymore, everything leaks. They're just, the quality just isn't there anymore. So if we switch to hemp, the material, and we improve the quality, the products would be a lot better. Doug Ford is focused on the Ring of Fire, and with that project comes pollution with tailings ponds and really bad mining pollution, and he wants to go forward without the consent of First Nations. He has no consent from First Nations at all. Basically, a lot of those communities say no, and the odd few say yes, but the majority of the people in the north don't want the Ring of Fire to go forward because they know in the future they'll be paying the price as their environment will be their environment will be awful. They won't be able to drink the water, you won't be able to enjoy the wilderness, and the animals will pay the price too. So Doug Ford promoting the Ring of Fire is just more propaganda. He's using women to promote the Ring of Fire, models. He's using models to promote it. You know, going back to healthcare, our hospitals are falling apart in the north. They rely on clinics in most of those communities. The ambulances are donated ambulances from southern Ontario. It's just awful. Yeah, and there's no accessibility at all in terms of, change tables for people young and old that have disabilities or who are in diapers. You expect these people to go places. How are they supposed to change themselves on the floor? These are the things that our country should be worried about. Like our elders are paying the price. Our kids are paying the price for not investing in healthcare. And transportation. We have outdated rail that's really bad. The train tracks are falling apart because we refuse to invest in rail. The schools are all old and outdated. The apartments, most of the apartment buildings are really old and outdated. They need renovations done. Currently, they have a lot of the buildings, they're getting the materials from Habitat, and they're just patching up the buildings and making people pay high rents. And a lot of the places still have 1980s stoves and 1990 fridges, and people are paying over $800 in rent. It's terrible to see what our country's become. This is Canada. We're supposed to have the best healthcare in the world, and it's almost like third world healthcare. It's that bad. And health problems. It's because of all the contaminated food. We used to have a really good food inspection program, and people that were good at inspecting all the food. They rolled back that. Now all these places are making food. They have no gloves on. In a pandemic, a lot of them were making food with no masks on. It's really disgusting how they're allowing these corporations to just be able to sell food, and they're making it with their bare hands, for the public. It's disgusting, and even the schools, they have no, they've taken all the cafeterias out and imported all the food by Chartwells. It's all brought in by Chartwells, pre-packaged food, and it's very expensive. So all the poor people that have no money, they can barely afford to send their kid to school with some money to be able to afford a lunch, and if you don't have a lunch, you're sent to the office, and they give you an apple and a granola bar and a juice box, maybe, if you're lucky. But yeah, that's how it's running here in Canada. It's pretty bad, and it doesn't matter if it's a conservative or liberal government. It's been this way for years, and it's time to change that. The people are getting sick of this war on drugs too. This failed war on drugs. I lost my mother in 1995 to the war on drugs here in London, Ontario, and my family got no compensation and was left in the dust. And this, the victims of crime fund has been squandered by the politicians, and none of the victims of crime get any funding or any help or any counseling or anything. This system is garbage. This system is of conservative and liberal and colonialism and imperialism. It needs to stop. We gotta fix the system, and the way to do it is to remove the colonial narratives. If you want a downtown that's inclusive, you cannot exclude the middle class and poor and homeless. You have to include everybody. You know what I mean? It's they want to make it all geared for the wealthy, and they think that that's going to work, and it won't. Another thing that Canada's did is they got rid of a lot of the family-owned businesses and imported American stores, American restaurants. You look at downtown, they put Popeyes in there. That's an American restaurant. Subway, American restaurant. All these American restaurants. What about all the restaurants from, Canada, family-owned restaurants? They're all suffering. You know what I mean? They don't care about this country at all. All they're worried about is how much money they can make, the government. And they always got money for war, but never for the poor. And it's just sickening to see what's going on in our country. And the conservatives always want to talk about the refugees, but it's the politicians that went over there to their countries and destroyed their countries, and now they have nowhere left to go. So blame the politicians. They're the ones that created the problem by destroying all these people's countries. Our country needs referendums so that when they take our country to war, every person in Canada gets to vote on it and everyone has a say, not just the select few in Ottawa that think that they get to have all the say and they get to take our country to war whenever they damn well please, because what they say goes. It isn't what they say goes. All the people of this country should have a say. And right now, that's not what's happening. Apparently they voted for a bill in the House of Commons to censor the news on Facebook. Did everybody in Canada have a say about that? Or was it just a select few people in Ottawa that are sitting there making decisions on behalf of our whole country? And only them get the say and not the rest of the country? That's a problem. Going back to vaccinations and food, the vaccines, how many vaccines are you going to tell people to get? I mean, you can only put so much vaccine in you before you get really sick, and this GMO food, it's so chemically altered, it's disgusting. The food is just gross. I mean, what happened to our food, too, this is terrible, and the food costs in the north I don't even know how anybody's living up there with the food costs being so high, and the animals, there's only so many animals, so I mean, and they're not breeding the animals, so I mean, this is terrible what they're doing to our country. It's terrible. You guys want to talk about wildfires? You let Parks Canada, do a controlled burn and let it go out of control. Come on. I mean, you don't see what's going on? It's the fire department doing it. And it's also the oil sands. It's heating up the planet. The oil sands are heating up the planet in terms of the weather. The weather is changing because you keep mining and logging, causing the temperature to increase and get hotter. It's only common sense. And then, they're trying to use water to put out an oil fire. The fires are getting increasingly out of control because the whole ground is oil. And it's flammable. Also, the utilities up there, because the government went and privatized all of the healthcare and the utilities and all that, and now all those costs are really high. It just shows you that the privatization and amalgamation doesn't work. Yeah, and another thing is that, in terms of disability, there's a lot of people that are on disability that don't have a disability, too. So the government needs to figure out who really has disabilities and who doesn't, because there's a lot of people that are on it that don't even have a disability. I also read an article on CBC, and it says City of Ottawa workers drive fleet vehicles home on taxpayers' dime. So they're driving city vehicles home on the taxpayers' dime. That doesn't surprise me, because here in London they have brand new vehicles and they drive day and night on the taxpayers' dime all over the city. You see them all over the city, and they're driving around, and it's all on taxpayers' dime. And up north they have the same thing, and they even have OW workers that are the workers driving around in taxpayer paid for by the taxpayer vehicles, and they're driving to the stores and they're driving all around, and we're all paying for it. That shouldn't be. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. And even the service vehicles like garbage trucks and construction vehicles, they shouldn't be allowed to operate at night. Who's paying for all that? It's ridiculous, and they're cutting trees down all over in the cities, and, we need those trees to breathe, They're cutting healthy trees down for no reason at all. It's sickening. And a lot of the reasons for cutting the trees down is because it creates work. So the more work they get, the more money they get paid. And so a lot of the times what they like to do is to inflate the project so they get paid more money. And the downtown brick walkway is there because there was a lot of money to be made off of that, because Gosnell, the former mayor of London, Ontario, had large connections to the paving industry, and so all those contractors got paid good money to put all that work into the downtown. Now, the downtown already had brick road a long time ago, and it was lifted up for a reason, because it all started to go bad and crack and get all broken bricks and everything else, and that's why it was taken out. There's a reason why they took it out, and it's because it didn't work the first time. So why are we trying old things over and over and over and over again when we know it doesn't work? And not only that, when they installed it wrong, and they had to redo it all over again. So it just shows you that, they have no really clue out what they're doing. They're just trying to make it look pretty, so that they think if they do that it will bring more people down there. And if they take all the poor and homeless out of the downtown core, it somehow is going to make people go down there. And and I hear all the time, oh, the downtown isn't safe, and it's because of all them addicts. You hear all these people all say that all the time. It's not because of that. It's because there's nothing to go downtown for. There's no music, there's no fun. They've taken the fun, the music, and everything right out of the downtown. And they always blame the poor, and it's not that. It's because the stores that are there are crap stores. They've always been crap stores, and the ones that were there years ago, they were not there anymore. They're gone. They left. They took off a long time ago, and what really hurt downtown was the Galleria Mall when it opened. And now look at it. The Galleria Mall has, 2 stores in it? Like, they've ruined the whole downtown, and they try to blame the homeless and poor. It's not the homeless and poor. It's the planners of this city. The planners they have no idea what they're doing, and they should all be removed from office. And they always say that the downtown isn't safe. It's never been safe. All downtowns are not safe. There's always violence and craziness that goes on downtown. It's downtown. It's not a place to live, really. It's downtown. There's going to be noise. If you don't like noise, and you don't like music, and you don't like fun, and you don't like drunkenness, and you don't like this, and you don't live downtown. Don't go downtown. Don't bring your kids downtown. Because I'm sick and tired of hearing people blame everybody else, and they always say it's not safe. Well, if you don't find it's safe, that's not everybody else's problem, and downtowns have never been safe. So I don't know what you're talking about when you say that the downtown isn't safe. It's never been safe. It wasn't safe in the 80s, it wasn't safe in the 70s, it wasn't safe in the 60s, it wasn't safe in the 50s, it wasn't safe anytime. It's downtown. You know what I mean? I'm sick of these people, and they always blame the poor. What does the poor have to do with it? The real criminals sit in City Hall. London, Ontario City Hall is full of criminals. And the same people will sit there and say, there was no drugs back in the day downtown. Yes, there was. There was drugs downtown just like there is today. There's pharmacies down there just like there is today, and they were profiting off the problem, and they created addicts just like today, and there's drunks just like today, So I don't know what you're talking about when you say it's not safe. It's never been safe. It's never been safe downtown. It's downtown. And all downtowns are like that. So don't expect to go downtown and it to be safe, because it's not. And it never will be. Another thing is that they like to pay off inspectors for the restaurants. A lot of the inspectors get paid off. So they get paid off in a way that the restaurant pays the inspector just to say everything is fine so the restaurant can stay open. There's a lot of things that are the way they are because of lack of oversight. Anyway, thanks for listening to my podcast and my opinions. It's greatly appreciated.